Okay, so today we're looking at this situation that I think a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah.
Imagine you're, starting to think about college and your future, and then you realize your parents don't have anything saved for retirement.
Oh, wow.
And that's exactly what happened to our listener today.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they turned to an online forum for advice, and
Yeah, makes sense.
I think it's a great idea.
Lots of wisdom there.
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom there, so we're going to unpack some of it today.
Sounds good.
So basically, the listener's parents are about 9 to 13 years away from retirement,
Okay.
no savings or assets to their name, and they're kind of just like relaxed about it.
Oh, wow.
But our listener is really stressed out, understandably, wants to make, good choices for themselves and their family.
Right. It's a tough spot to be in.
Really tough spot, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think one of the most common themes in the advice was this idea of like, hey, prioritize your own financial stability first.
Right. Because you can't really help anyone else if you're struggling yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like the whole oxygen mask on an airplane thing.
Yeah.
Got to secure your own before helping others.
Makes sense.
It makes sense, but it's definitely easier said than done, especially when you feel this obligation to family.
Totally.
There's also a lot of talk about like financial literacy,
Right.
not even just like saving money, but like really understanding how money works.
Yeah. Like how to budget, how to invest.
Exactly. And some people were suggesting things like, hey, maybe gently guide your parents towards resources like budgeting tools,
That's a good idea.
or even like consulting with a financial advisor.
That's a great point. A professional can help with all that.
Yeah, and maybe explain things in a way that's easier to understand.
Definitely.
But here's where things get kind of tricky.
Okay.
There's like two sides to the advice.
Oh, like what?
So some people are like, it's their life, their choices, you're not responsible for their mistakes.
Right.
But then others are like, wake up call, this is going to be your problem eventually.
Yeah. How do you
Yeah.
balance those two things?
Yeah, that's the big question. Like
Yeah.
personal responsibility versus like what can happen in the future.
It's tricky.
Super tricky.
And someone said you can't fix 30 years of bad financial decisions in a few years.
Oof, that's harsh, but probably true.
It's true.
And it makes you think about this whole thing as like a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
Like it's going to take time.
It's a long game.
Yeah. But the emotional side of this can't be ignored.
You're right.
Like, how do you even start these conversations with your parents?
Yeah, especially if they might not want to hear it.
Right. Like they could be resistant or even resentful.
Exactly.
So how do you approach that?
Well, I think the key is empathy. Approach it with understanding because it's probably a really sensitive topic.
For sure.
Instead of like lecturing them,
Right.
try framing it as a team effort.
I like that.
Like, hey, I'm learning about financial planning.
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk about our goals and how we can support each other.
I think that's a great way to start.
Yeah. It's more collaborative
Yeah. Exactly.
instead of confrontational.
Right. It's not you versus them. It's like we're in this together.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that's a good starting point.
I agree.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, thinking about like actual solutions,
Yeah.
I remember this one comment in the forum that suggested building like an accessory dwelling unit
Oh, yeah.
on their property
Yeah.
to maybe house their parents down the line.
Like a granny flat or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. And I was
Yeah.
like, wow, that's creative.
Yeah, that's thinking outside the box.
Yeah, it's not for everyone, obviously.
Right.
But it shows you there are different ways to approach this.
Yeah, totally. And it highlights this idea that there's no like one size fits all answer.
Right. Every family's different.
Every situation is unique.
Yeah. And it made me think about like the bigger picture too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's not just about individual families, right?
Totally. This connects to bigger societal issues.
Yeah, like what?
Well, the rising cost of living, for one.
That's a big one.
Huge. And then there's the lack of financial literacy education.
Yeah, not a lot of schools teach that stuff.
Right. And then you have cultural expectations around family support.
Okay. How does that play into it?
Well, in some cultures, caring for aging parents is just expected.
Yeah.
And that can clash with your own personal goals.
It's like you're pulled in two directions.
Exactly. You want to build your own life, but you also want to support your family.
It's a lot to balance.
It is, especially when you're young and just starting out.
And on top of all that, sometimes families just don't talk about money.
Oh, yeah. It's like a taboo
It's a
subject.
huge taboo.
You just don't bring it up.
Exactly. And that makes it even harder to address these things.
Right. It's like sweeping it under the rug, hoping it'll go away.
And it never does.
Never.
So we've talked about the situation, the advice, the bigger picture.
Yeah.
But what does it all mean for our listener? Like, what are the key takeaways?
Well, one big takeaway is to avoid burnout.
Okay.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed and try to fix everything at once,
Right.
but that can backfire.
Yeah, you can't do it all at once.
Exactly. It's about pacing yourself.
Like a marathon.
Yes, exactly.
And our listener mentioned they're living at home during college to save money.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's really admirable. But they got to set boundaries.
That's so important.
Yeah, you can't pour from an empty cup,
Right. You have to protect your own well-being.
mental and financial.
Absolutely.
But even though this is a stressful situation,
Yeah,
I think it can be a learning experience too.
that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. Our listeners being proactive, seeking advice,
AR.
planning ahead.
That's huge.
Yeah, they're learning from their parents' mistakes.
And hopefully they'll avoid those pitfalls themselves.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
they have time on their side.
That's right.
Starting early is key.
Absolutely. It gives them a head start.
Yeah. This whole thing really highlights how important financial planning is.
It does.
It's not just about retirement. It's about having options.
Yeah. Peace of mind.
Exactly. Being prepared for whatever life throws at you.
And we keep coming back to those two sides of the advice.
Yeah, the whole it's not your problem versus it will be your problem.
Right. How do you reconcile those views?
I mean, on one hand, adult children aren't legally obligated,
Right. They have their own lives to live.
but family is family.
Exactly. It's hard to ignore the potential consequences.
If things go south financially,
It's tough.
yeah, it gets complicated.
So how do you find that balance?
Yeah, how do you support your family without sacrificing your own well-being?
That's the million-dollar question.
Is it even possible?
I think it is, but it takes communication.
Open and honest.
Yes, and setting clear boundaries.
Right, making choices that work for everyone.
And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, from who?
Financial advisors, therapists,
Okay.
professionals who can offer guidance.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They can help navigate those tough conversations.
So it's okay to reach out for support,
Absolutely, it's a sign of strength.
not weakness.
Right.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Practical advice,
Mm-hmm.
emotional stuff, even the bigger societal context.
And our listener is still facing this tough reality.
Trying to balance their own dreams with their parents' situation.
It's a tough spot.
But they're not alone.
That's the important thing.
Reading those form responses, you see so many people have been there,
Yeah, it's a shared experience.
and that can be comforting.
Absolutely, knowing you're not the only one.
Gives you strength.
It encourages you to keep going.
So for our listener, what's one step they can take right now to feel more in control?
That's a great question, and it might sound simple, but focus on themselves.
Okay.
Build their own financial literacy.
How do they do that?
There are so many resources out there, books, podcasts, online courses.
So it's about empowering themselves with knowledge.
Exactly. And, sometimes that can inspire others.
Oh, like leading by example.
Exactly. Showing there's another way.
A better way.
Yeah. And who knows, it might even spark a conversation with their parents.
That would be amazing.
Right. Encourage them to think about their own finances.
So it's not about forcing change
No, it's about inspiring it.
through your own actions.
Yeah.
So we've explored this situation from all angles,
We have.
and our listener has some tough choices ahead.
But they're not powerless. They have the power to choose how they respond.
And every step they take towards financial literacy,
Is a step towards a better future.
a more secure future.
And who knows, maybe this experience
As challenging as it is,
can lead to positive change.
for everyone involved.
It's a reminder that even in uncertainty,
There's always hope. It really shows you how, even when things are tough, you can still choose how you react and kind of like write your own story.
yeah, that's a good way to put it. And, speaking of taking charge, this whole conversation has me thinking about a question for our listener. They've learned so much about financial planning, but what's one thing they can do like right now to feel more in control of their own financial future?
That's a good question. And it could be something small like downloading a budgeting app or maybe even scheduling a meeting with a financial advisor to talk about retirement planning.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything huge. The important thing is to just start taking action, move from feeling overwhelmed to feeling empowered.
Yeah, and even if it seems scary at first, each step you take towards understanding your finances gets you closer to a more secure future.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe by taking care of your own finances, you'll inspire your parents to do the same.
Oh yeah, like leading by example.
Exactly. Showing them that it's possible to create a better financial situation.
Maybe that'll even open up a conversation with them. Encourage them to take a look at their own finances.
I love that approach. It's not about forcing change, it's about inspiring it through your own actions.
So we've really dug deep into this situation, and our listener has some tough decisions to make.
They do, but they're not alone in this. And remember, there's help available.
Yeah, they have the power to choose their own path. and every step they take towards financial literacy brings them closer to a more stable and confident future.
That's right. And, maybe this whole experience, even though it's difficult right now, can be a turning point for them and their family. It shows that even when things are uncertain, there's always hope for a brighter financial future.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great note to end on. So, to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Remember, you're not alone in your financial journey, and there are resources available to help you every step of the way. Take care, everyone.